It's no secret that children in Black communities are more subject to be exposed to crime, abuse, and lack of education. Statistics also show that over 47% of Black children are raised in a single-family home without a father. Because of this, studies show that Black men grow up with societal issues, high crime rates, increased risks of anxiety and depression, and emotional anger, to name a few. Today, we will walk through the story of a Black man who has beat the odds and changed the narrative. From a little boy growing up in Atlanta to having his father snatched from him, to becoming the answer to solving one of Atlanta's biggest cold cases. One of the founders of the Love Rekindled, the Antonio Taylor himself.
Thank you so much for sharing our platform and being here. I couldn't think of a better person to sit down and talk to right now.
You better not have thought of anybody better.
I wouldn't.
I'm really honored to be here, Antonio, to walk through this with you. This is the first time that you actually are being vocal about what life has been like for you, both good and bad, the ups and the downs, and to tell one of America's biggest cold cases.
Never thought about it that way, right. But I guess you're right.
I guess when you're in it, you don't really feel it because you just live in it. But us on the outside can look and see like, wow, this is grand. This is big.
Yeah. Not a fun seat to sit in. I can definitely tell you that.
But an honored seat.
Absolutely.
So, you Atlanta people, you talk a lot, you brag a lot. I'm not from Atlanta, but you are born and raised right here in Atlanta.
Zone 3 Atlanta, baby.
Oh, get into the zones. Here we go. I don't know. Zone 4, where is that? We're Boulder Crest.
If it ain't Zone 3.
Okay, makes sense. Anyways, I've been here about 20 years. I'm pretty familiar. And I did probation for juveniles and corrections. So I know about the schools and stuff like that. So did you Tri-Cities? What school did you go to?
I went to Crim High School, actually.
Crim? Is that?
Yes, like, Crim is the best high school here in Atlanta.
Oh. Best as in creme de la creme or like?
Best as in creme de la creme.
Oh, because I never heard of it. So I was just,
Best kept secret.
That makes sense. But you were all that in Atlanta and the neighborhoods you grew up in. You was able to go to the creme de la creme, but life wasn't really all giggles, right? For you.
It wasn't. I think looking back, I think I had like the typical childhood because you know what you compete with. So looking around, I was normal. Everybody I looked, I didn't even realize we were poor. So when you grow up in the projects, I did not even realize we were poor. But looking back now, I understand the scarcity, how we lacked. Yeah. But then I didn't get it. We always kept clean clothes, and I never went hungry. I didn't always eat what I wanted to eat, but I never went hungry. And I can always definitely tie that to my mom, just doing the things she needed to do to make sure we was okay.
How many of it were you? You got siblings, right?
Yes, yes. So I am the youngest. People say the baby, but I say I'm the youngest.
Okay.
I'm the youngest of 4. Oldest sister, my brother, then my sister next to me, then me. It was 4 of us.
Okay. Were you raised in a two-parent household? Yes,
I was raised into a 2-parent household up until I was 8 years old. At the age of 8, my dad was senselessly murdered. I was present that particular night.
So your life took a turn at 8 years old, really, when it happened. You were in the household. So, but when you found out, did you wake up the next morning and find out that your dad had been murdered, or was he just missing? What did that look like when you first found out that dad's no longer here?
Right. So if I'm thinking back, the night it happened, I have no recollection. My recollection come from, I was at camp.
Okay.
And this is what I'll say. My dad was killed on Saturday night.
Okay.
Monday morning in camp is when my recollection started. So Sunday morning, all that was just normal for me. I can't even tell you what happened those days.
Right.
Now.
Right.
But I can recall that Monday camp, my auntie picked me up from camp, which was very strange. My mom always picked me up, and I got picked up early. So I got picked up by my aunt, and I my whole thing was, I didn't eat yet. Like, I'm not going home. I ain't had that meal yet. I'm not going home. So her whole thing, hey, I stopped by McDonald's. I'll get you what you need. So we stopped. We got something to eat, and we went home. And I'll never forget, my grandmother came to me, and she pretty much said, hey, they found your dad dead. And at 8 years old, looking back, it don't register.
Right.
I didn't know what to think. I think I was and it's one of those moments where I never forget. I still remember what my grandmother had on. She had on a yellow tank top
Wow.
and blue jean shorts. I never forget it.
Back at the house.
Back at the house, it was on the steps. We lived in some apartments. So when you go in, it's like a two downstairs, two upstairs.
Yeah.
And leading up to the steps, I'll never forget. And I remember seeing everybody cars out, and my grandmama just met me and was like, "Hey, they found your dad dead." I'm like, wow, like, what do I do with this at 8 years old?
Right.
So I think that was the start of I would call it my purpose.
Yeah.
I would say that was the start of my purpose.
Do you recall her coddling you? Anybody embracing you as they told you this? Your mom or your grandmother, siblings? Or it was just...
If I'm completely honest with you, no. It was, and if I think back on it, it was almost like telling me like, "Hey, do you want something to drink?"
Wow.
It was with no emotion. It didn't make sense then, but today, knowing everything I know today, I get it now. Yeah. But to answer your question, it was just like telling me, "Hey, your shoes untied." Wow. They found your dad dead. And so the story I was led to believe from that particular moment was your dad was robbed and he was murdered by an unknown person. And just for me at 8, it didn't register. And I think at the time, I recall just being afraid.
Okay.
Like, man, like, somebody going to kill me? What's going to happen to me now? And I don't think adults at the time understood, what do that mean when you tell a child that?
Right.
And so I remember like for months on just being afraid, not knowing what that mean for me.
Wow. So then what was it like in the household after that? Definitely you were afraid, but what was it like as far as the dynamics with your mom, your siblings? Did life just go on? Or was it like, do you remember conversations saying, like, we need to figure this out? Was there any more thought to it?
Right. So keep in mind, I was 8 years old.
Right.
So what I can remember, immediately after my dad was senselessly murdered, I remember my uncle moving in with us.
Okay.
I remember us moving to another apartment within that same apartment building. My uncle, Daryl, and I remember him pretty much taking on a father role for me.
So as you grow up in the household and life goes on, you're doing great. You have the father figure of your uncle, your mom, everybody is living their life. You go off to the service, to the military, you come back. And is this when you decided to join the police department?
Yeah. So what happened was, for me, I was an athlete. And what I did was like my last year, my ex got pregnant with my son. Okay. So my thing of it is something I have to do now. I have someone that's dependent on me. So I decided to enter into the Navy. And entered into the Navy, went and did my 4 years. And once I got home, I had an auntie that I loved dearly. She was on her dying bed, and I'll never forget. She looked at me and she said, "Your mom really know what happened to your dad." Now, keep in mind, I had already went with the story. Some strange person murdered and killed my dad. My dad was in the streets. He actually owned business as well. So for them to tell me that he was murdered by somebody, it wasn't far-fetched because of the lifestyle he lived. But when my auntie on her dying bed told me that, and I'll never forget, Cherie, she was like, "I'm not talking out my head. I know what I'm saying. And I don't want to leave here. Your mom know what happened, and you deserve to know."
And is this your mom's sister or your dad's sister?
This is my mom's sister. Okay. When I tell you, ace boom coon, like loved her to life. And so I took that in. So at the time, fast forward, I'm probably early 30s. Okay. So time have passed.
Yeah.
So I took that part in, but what do you do with that?
Yeah. Yeah. So, what did you do with that?
So
she was on her dying bed.
She was on her dying bed, and to put it all in context, she passed away not even 2 weeks later.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I didn't say nothing leading up to her funeral, and a couple of months passed by, and now keep in mind, I have at this time I'm in another marriage at this particular time when that information comes to me.
Okay.
And what I want to tell everybody, you have to have support to do extraordinary things.
Yeah.
You can't do extraordinary thing with average people on your team.
Absolutely.
And at the time, I didn't have the support I needed in my early 30s to even deal with that. So what I did was that information was put in the back of my mind. I heard it, but I didn't even know what to do with it.
So you didn't even share this with your wife at the time?
No.
So you had a baby?
I had 2 kids.
Two kids.
I had 2 kids.
A wife.
And a wife at the time.
The aunt is passing. It's on her deathbed.
Yes.
She feels that she has to tell you this.
Yes.
Is it just you and her in the room when she tells you?
It's just me and her in the room. Yep.
And then so you walk around with this in the back of your head wondering what to do. And then you have to go bury your aunt.
Absolutely. And also, Sheree, keep in mind, my aunt had HIV.
Okay.
So she was in and out with her consciousness, with her thoughts. So at the time, I'm battling, do she really know what she's saying? But me and my auntie, we had such a bond. She made it clear to me, I'm not talking outside of my head, because I spent a lot of time with her. So she made it clear to me like, hey, I'm not having a moment. I know what I'm saying. And I knew she knew what she was saying. I just did not know what to do with the information that I received at the time.
So then that was back in, I read the police report. That was back in 2004, 2000.
Yes, that was around 2004, 2005 time.
Yeah. So you held on to that information, Antonio. Is there any time you said your father had a little street life? What did he do for a living?
Yes, so my dad, he was an entrepreneur as well.
Okay.
Good guy, owned a construction company. He owned a lounge, but he also dabbled in the street. So I know my dad was selling drugs, and he was selling heavy drugs.
Okay.
And he also ran a gambling house. He spent a lot of time gambling. That's how he spent a lot of his time. He was a money guy.
So like you said, it wasn't far-fetched to know that, or to believe the story that had been painted for you.
It wasn't far-fetched.
Can you recall back, or did you even think back to say, were there any moments in your household of abuse? Do you remember your dad hitting your mom or beating your mom or having aggressive fights or anything?
No, I don't. But again, I was 8 years old, and then just understanding domestic violence as a police officer, it still didn't add up.
Yeah, because I was going to say,
me, it still didn't add up.
Yeah, would that be part of one of the things you thought about as a police officer now, experienced for you on the force now for about 7 years now by this time?
Correct.
So you're thinking domestic. You didn't think like domestic violence. I mean, even as an 8-year-old child, I grew up in domestic violence as well, and I can remember my brother even being beat, and I was probably 4 years old. So there's some things you just cannot forget, even as a child.
It's a lot of stuff that didn't make sense.
What bothers me is, Antonio, what did you do for a year?
I did what most people do. I pretended that what I heard I didn't hear.
But you knew it was true.
I knew it was true. I knew in my heart that it was true. And
did you Google? Did you start looking at the case at all?
I did not have the courage at the time to do any of that. A lot of time when you hear certain stuff, it'll paralyze you. And now, knowing me now and maturing into the man I am now, it paralyzed me. So I went into a phase where I just blocked it out. So I can actually see when I hear people say, oh, I just blocked it out. I can believe I'm living proof of that really happens. So that is that's the most unique thing about my life. So I became a police officer in 2001. At the time my auntie told me, I actually was a police officer then. So don't ask me how I ended up being a police Sheree. I could not even tell you. It was definitely ordained by God for me to be a police. And you'll see as we continue to talk how those particular skills helped me with this particular situation. Wow. Because it's no more police left in me at all. I couldn't police 1 hour right now. And I did it for 19 years. Ooh. I could not do one more traffic stop right now today.
At all. Just done with it.
So it was just a calling that God had for me to go that way for this.
The fact that God had his hand on you this entire time, it's almost like your purpose is all of this. You are definitely walking in your purpose right now.
That's the goodness in God.
Definitely.
And that's the thing that and not to take you to church.
No, take me to church.
But let me tell you, that's one thing nobody could ever talk to me about God now because of this experience. You can't fool me about God now because I understand how intentional He
How
is
intentional.
and how He works.
Yeah. To go.
So I don't care what man say no more. I don't care what man say no
You
more.
can't. You the last person that should care what anybody says.
Absolutely.
So you're already a police officer. Aunt has told you, here's a tip. A year later, you go and ask mom, is this true? And your mom doesn't even fluster. She tells you exactly what you want to hear or what you didn't want to hear.
Just what you said. She told me what I wanted to hear. So I called my mom and straight up, Mom, I know what happened to my dad and it's time for us to talk about it. I need you to come over. She said no words other than I'm on the way.
Okay.
My mom arrived to my resident maybe 30 minutes later. And she said, hey, I'm going to let you know what happened.